You're welcome to the Messiah channel. This channel deals with end times, and today our message is related to what I will call America's LGBT diplomacy. And we are discussing the tension between United States and Jamaica because of the treatment of LGBT diplomats in Jamaica. And for those who are not aware, the US government wrote a letter to the government of Jamaica regarding American diplomats in Jamaica, and America was requesting that Jamaica gives diplomatic immunity to the same-sex spouse of an American diplomat in Jamaica. The issue is, should Jamaica give diplomatic immunity to the spouse of American diplomat who is of the same sex as the American diplomat? Americans wanted Jamaicans to give the spouse of the American diplomat diplomatic immunity, and also to accord this person all the privileges that are accorded the spouses of diplomats. Excuse me. The Jamaican government actually disagreed because Jamaican laws prohibit same-sex marriages. So if Jamaican laws prohibit same-sex marriages, why should Jamaica accord diplomatic immunity to the same-sex spouse of an American diplomat, and to accord this person the privileges that are recognized under international law? In other words, can America do in Jamaica that is prohibited by Jamaican law or Jamaican constitution? And as a retaliation, the Biden administration is saying that it will not renew the visas for Jamaican diplomats who are in United States. And it has an end time implication, because the prophecy is that preceding the coming of the Messiah, the world will be like Sodom and Gomorrah. And now you see the spread of LGBTQ ideology over the world. And today we see diplomatic tension between United States and Jamaica as a result of America's request for Jamaica to recognize LGBT agenda. This is a diplomatic tension, but it has end time implications. And the Bible is very clear. Revelation 18 verse 4. Let's look at it. Revelation 18 verse 4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues." This was an occasion when an angel was warning the people in Babylon to come out of her, so that they would not be partakers of the sins of Babylon and receive the plagues that are intended for Babylon. If you live in Babylon, accept the doctrines and abominations of Babylon, then the judgment coming on Babylon will have collateral consequences. You avoid the consequences if you do not partake of the sins of Babylon. The Bible is very clear that there's no room for same-sex marriages, and the Lord destroyed the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah as a result of this sin. And in the end times, you see the spread of LGBT agenda over the globe. And here we see America requesting the government of Jamaica to accord diplomatic immunity to the same-sex spouse of American diplomat in Jamaica. And when you see Jamaica rejecting it, it is not strange, because all black nations, most black nations in the world, are rejecting the LGBT agenda, and the United States is retaliating in the case of Jamaica by saying that Jamaican diplomats, they will not have their visas extended because of Jamaica refusing to abide by America's LGBT demands. In the case of Uganda, recently Uganda passed a law against homosexuality, and in retaliation, the American government refused, denying a visa to the Speaker of the Parliament of Uganda. It was the Speaker of the Parliament that received the brunt of America's retaliation. And so when it came to the case of Ghana, one of the members of Parliament in Ghana took judicial notice of America's diplomatic pressure on Uganda and said that should America retaliate against Ghanaian parliamentarians for passing the anti-LGBT law through denial of visas or any other thing like that, then the parliamentarian threatened that Ghana will also retaliate by interfering with America's businesses in Ghana. And so the potential for tension between United States and black nations over the world is very high. And we're talking about diplomatic harassment or retaliation because black nations are refusing to accept LGBT ideology, and they are doing that not only because they believe in God, it's also because LGBT is against the morals of the African. And today we are looking at the implications. The implication is very clear. The America is not putting pressure on other nations, the Arab nations, the Muslim nations, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. The US is not doing that. The US is only targeting black nations, and that is very controversial. Now, some people argue that there's a racial motivation behind it. America is interested in bullying only black people, black nations, in the same way America is bullying black American population. So it's very hypocritical for America not to dispatch same-sex spouses to Muslim nations. They are doing that in Jamaica, that is a black nation. Jamaica and Ghana have a connection, and it's a historic connection. As a result of the transatlantic slave trade, lots of Africans from West Africa who were Hebrews, they were shipped to Jamaica. And a lot of scholars believe that a lot of Jamaicans are from Ghana, particularly from the Akan tribes, and they are Hebrews. And so we can see what is going on. Babylon, United States, imposing what is considered an abomination to the Hebrews. The Hebrews, I'm talking about Jamaica. I'm talking about the Hebrews who were sent to Jamaica as a result of the transatlantic slave trade, and also the Hebrews who are in other parts of Africa, whether they are in Uganda, whether they are in Ghana, or they are in Congo. So it is not a coincidence. I think the American knows what he's doing. Excuse me, imposing the LGBT culture on countries that um, have Hebrew ancestry or Hebrew heritage, and that makes it very controversial, if not satanic. If you don't accept Americans' conditions, then America can terminate aid given to you. And so Jamaica faces a potential for losing aid coming from America in the same way Uganda has been blacklisted because Uganda passed a law against LGBT, and the US has retaliated against Uganda. We're talking about America sending a spouse who has the same sex as a diplomat to Jamaica. It's a blow to Jamaica because it's an affront on Jamaica's culture. It's also an affront to God because God abhors homosexuality, and for that reason, God destroyed the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Uh, America is sending a diplomat to Jamaica, or has sent a diplomat to Jamaica. The diplomat is an LGBT, and the diplomat wants LGBT spouse to come and follow, and Jamaica says no. There are instances where America insults black nations, and this is an example in Jamaica, where America wants Jamaica to accord diplomatic immunity to the same-sex spouse of American diplomats, while America is not doing the same to Arab nations or white nations. And there is a pattern. And the pattern happened in Ghana in 1957. As you are aware, Ghana was the first black nation to receive independence from colonial rule. And when Ghana became independent in 1957, Americans sent a diplomat to Ghana. The first American diplomat to Ghana was a black man, a Negro. And what's wrong? What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that, except that the American government decided to send a Negro to a Negro country. So look at that. A Negro diplomat to a Negro country. They will not send a white diplomat to a black country, but they decided to send a Negro diplomat to a Negro country. That was a bluff, that was a mockery, that was an insult. I don't think there's anything wrong sending a black person to be an ambassador of America in the first black nation that got independence in Africa. We have to look at the history and the politics at that time. W.E.B. Du Bois, he wanted to come to Ghana to be part of the independence anniversary or the first Negro nation to get independence. But there was manipulation. W.E.B. Du Bois did not get his passport, his his travel was restricted, and he was not able to attend Ghana's independence in 1857. There was a diplomatic sabotage. W.E.B. Du Bois was not able to attend Ghana's independence in 1857. His remains are in Ghana. Ghana has a center, W.E.B. Du Bois Center. If you are an African American, if you go to Ghana, you should visit the W.E.B. Du Bois Center. I'm saying that at the time of independence, W.E.B. Du Bois was not given a passport to enter Ghana. I'm talking about American passport to enter Ghana, even though Kwame Nkrumah was interested in inviting W.E.B. Du Bois to come and be a witness to a historic event, the first black nation getting independence from European colonial rule. Luckily, there was one person who was present at the independence, an African American, Dr. Martin Luther King. He was present and at that moment, and he met the vice president of the United States, who represented the government of the United States on the occasion of Ghana's independence anniversary. And according to an article that I read, America's vice president in Ghana, 1957, 6 March 1957, when he saw Martin Luther King, he said, "Congratulations on your country's independence." That was a diplomatic disaster. The vice president of the United States thought that Dr. Martin Luther King was the president of Ghana. How come? How come the vice president of the United States didn't know Martin Luther King? So according to the records that I read, Dr. Martin Luther King looked at the vice president of the United States and said, "Mr. President, I live in America. I'm from America. My country is not yet free." And so this is part of the awakening of the Negro, the invisible Negro, the Negro who is not seen, is lost in the crowd. So Martin Luther King was lost in Ghana. The American vice president did not know who he was. He thought Martin Luther King was the president of Ghana and wanted to congratulate him on his country becoming independent. Martin Luther King said, "No, I'm from America. My country is not free." Meaning he, as a Negro, was not free in America. He is not free. Dr. Martin Luther King was not free. I'm not free. My country is not free. So as we are talking about the diplomatic row, diplomatic tension between US and Jamaica, we say that Jamaica is not free as a country. Because if Jamaica were a free nation, then Jamaica will be able to decide her destiny. If Jamaica were Saudi Arabia or United Arab Emirates, a white country, then Jamaica will be able to say no to the imposition of LGBT diplomats on Jamaica, where that act is a violation of Jamaica's constitution, is an assault on Jamaica's culture. By the way, when we're talking about diplomatic pressure that America mounts on black nations, I'll remind you of what happened in 1965 when the president of Ghana published a book. And the title of the book is Neocolonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism. Nkrumah was a scholar president. He wrote so many books, and one of the books is Neocolonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism. Nkrumah was saying that African nations were independent in name because their independence meant a new form of colonialism, which he called neocolonialism. And he said that neocolonialism is worse than colonialism because under colonialism, you know your enemy who is ruling you directly. But when he gives you independence and controls you indirectly, politically, economically, and socially, then you don't know who your enemy is because your enemy has given you independence but is still controlling what you do. Nkrumah published the book Neocolonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism, and American government didn't like the book because the book was an exposure of America's new colonial activities in Africa, particularly in black nations. And American government retaliated, and according to a book I read, at that time when the book was released, when the book was published, the president of America gave an order for a ship that was bringing wheat to Ghana to return to America. A ship of food was on their way. A ship of food was on its way to Ghana. And when the book was released, the American president said, hey, don't offload food to Ghana because I am retaliating against Nkrumah, Ghana's first president, publishing a book called Neocolonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism. There are so many people who are offended. They're offended when black people assert their sovereignty. They're offended when black people say no to LGBTQ in the same way that Jamaica is saying no to LGBTQ pressure. The same way Uganda is saying no, the same way Ghana is saying no, the same way Kenya is going to say no. And so we have to see the diplomatic tension between the US and Jamaica in a spiritual context. It is Babylon spreading Babylonian culture to the lands where Hebrews are, lands from where the prophet Isaiah said the Messiah will go and gather the Hebrews who are scattered over the world. Before the gathering comes, Babylon America is polluting the culture of the Hebrews with LGBT agenda, a sinister agenda. And some people are saying that America is using LGBT and homosexuality to depopulate black nations, to destroy their culture and to depopulate them. And one of those scholars is Ronald Darton, who wrote the book Hebrews to Negroes. And when I read the book, he made a comment that one of the agendas behind the spreading of homosexuality in Africa is an attempt by the power that be to depopulate the African continent. After all, was it not Henry Kissinger, America's Secretary of State, who wrote a memo in 1974, I believe, regarding the plan by America to depopulate the countries of Africa, to reduce the population of African nations. So I don't know what the intention is. America sending a same same-sex spouse to a diplomat in Jamaica, but is not doing the same thing in Saudi Arabia. I don't know why, but I know one thing, that the Lord will remind the Hebrews that they are Hebrews and they cannot eat any food offered to idols. In the same way that Daniel, when he was in captivity in Babylon, said, I refuse to eat food offered to idols. So I congratulate Jamaica for taking a bold stand on the LGBT pressure mounted from the United States. But at least it's a testament to the fact that we are in the last days, and we are in the days of Lot, we are in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah, and the Babylon of our days is putting pressure on the Hebrew people, Hebrew nations, to accept homosexuality. So they will defy their garment and partake of the sins of Babylon and make them collateral damages, because he who partake the sins of Babylon will also receive the plagues of Babylon. And so that's why Revelation 18 verse 4 says, And I heard a voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. I'm not sure what will happen to the president of Jamaica for refusing to accept America's diplomatic LGBT pressure. But I know that when Nkrumah wrote the book, Neocolonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism, and the book was published in 1965, America directed food aid to be sent back to America and not be delivered to Ghana. NATO also had a special meeting on Nkrumah, how he was a threat to the West. And a year later, in 1966, Kwame Nkrumah's government was overthrown with the help of the CIA. And it's on record that the first diplomat who was sent to Ghana as an ambassador, a black Negro, he indirectly assisted in the undermining of the government of Nkrumah, and definitely Nkrumah was overthrown in 1966. So America's LGBTQ diplomacy, Jamaica and Africa, we have to see what the motives are when America is selectively pushing LGBT agenda on only black nations in Africa and in the Caribbean. We are in the last days. The Hebrews who are scattered over the world, don't defy your garment, don't partake of the sins of Babylon, and don't allow them to push you so that you receive the plagues that will be inflicted on Babylon when judgment comes to Babylon. Send the links of this video to people you know. We are in the end times. We are in the last days. The final trumpet of heaven has sounded. Subscribe to the channel and send the message, share the message, the links to people you know over the world. Thank you. My email address is raptureafrica@yahoo.com. Thank you very much.